Hi, my name is Caitlin, and this is officially vlog number 2. Welcome to my dorm's living room. This is a light switch, the Honduran flag, and a quilt my mom made. We got robotics, powerlifting, and Michigan State kind of going on in the background. I fully intended to meet with Angelica again, but I didn't, and this other opportunity popped up before I got a chance to, and it's really sweet, and I want to talk about it and seem more appropriate for this project. Basically, on my way home for spring break, I took a bus to the airport. And on this bus, I got to sit next to someone totally awesome. And we ended up talking for 2 hours just about our cultures and like the differences and similarities. And I don't think I could have scripted a better interaction had I intended to. So here you go. So I got on this bus already pretty nervous because I hadn't ridden a bus to the airport before. I was hoping it was gonna work, but I wasn't 100% sure. I was already in a new situation. And beside me on the bus, there was a bus driver and these 2 big groups of people. There was a group of Chinese international students and this group of graduate students from sub-Saharan Africa. And then I felt like there was me. And so I felt alone and awkward and out of my comfort zone. So as people were boarding, I was a little nervous, wondering who was going to sit next to me, and this girl Rosette sits down, and we ended up talking for the whole bus ride, and I'm really glad we did, because I learned a lot. Rosette and I are different in a lot of ways. Rosette's from Uganda, and I'm from America, from the United States. America is a big thing, not just, I'm from the United States of America. And she's a graduate student here at Michigan State. She was on her way to Washington, D.C. with a group of graduate students from sub-Saharan Africa, and I was on my way to Nebraska. We have different nationalities, we have different takes on what's considered warm, because of where we grew up. We were talking about layers and all that jazz. We have different amount of siblings. She doesn't have any, and that kind of changed how she grew up versus me. I had a little brother. I have a little brother. And what we study is totally different. So I'm a teacher education major. I want to be a teacher. Whereas Rosette is studying food science. And we actually talked about that for quite some time on why she's studying food science and why she's studying at a graduate level here in the United States. Basically, what initially motivated her is that in Uganda, they dry their food outside by the sun because it's hot and it's really effective. But what they'll do is they'll put the food in the dirt, or they'll put a cloth on top of the dirt, but the food also on the ground again. And a lot of things will happen because of that. Either dirt does get in because it's on the same level as the dirt, and so wind will blow and it'll get in the dirt, or it's in the dirt, so when you pick it back up, there's dirt in that as well. Or in rainy seasons, the rain will just come suddenly, and so it'll rain, and even if you're right there and you take it right in, your food gets wet. And so after it gets wet, it stops raining, you bring the wet food back out to dry again. You start that whole process over. But what happens if you do that once or multiple times is that mold will start to grow. And that's not good to eat. And so there's a lot of unhygienic things going on in that process that's traditionally done. So Rosette developed this innovation that includes trays and a solar panel, and just basically completely circumvents the whole dirt and rain and mold and the problems that are a problem now. And she developed that and is hoping to implement that with the people of Uganda, and hope to improve food and nutrition in that way. But she doesn't want to just stop there. That's her starting point, and she wants to do so much more for the people of Uganda in terms of food and nutrition. It was just really fascinating to hear about, because I don't really hear motivation on why people have gone to graduate school or why they are at graduate school, just because I'm an undergrad, and I'm a freshman, this is my first year, and I'm in education, so I hear a lot of teachers talk about graduate school, but I don't hear much about other graduate students' experiences. So that was really fascinating. And another topic that kind of came up as we were talking was wedding ceremonies. So in Uganda, there is this bride prize. Basically, a groom will give the father of a bride a gift, like a big gift. There are fathers in Uganda that will have like a list that are like, this is what you must give me before I let you marry my daughter. And in addition to that, the groom will approach the house of the bride. And as he approaches, he's greeted by family members and close friends before he gets to the father, because the father gets like this big gift at the end. But before that, he meets all these other people, and all these other people also get gifts. Not like a piece of candy or like $1, but like gifts, like substantial things. And it can be a lot of people. And so marriage, before the wedding ceremony, it's a huge deal, and it's like a huge party and a big production. And Rosette has been in dozens and dozens of weddings and seen this a lot and received gifts for being close to the bride and all of that. And it was really fun to contrast that to the American culture that Rosette wasn't as familiar with in terms of weddings. I was able to explain, or at least talk about the 2 weddings I've been to of my cousins, and I didn't get a gift for showing up, but we were able to talk about how the ceremonies were different and what people wore is different. All those little details. It was really fun to talk about weddings because it makes me more curious about weddings in other cultures. It wasn't a topic that would have crossed my mind had I sat down with someone to interview them about their culture. So I'm really glad it came up, and I'm really glad we talked about it because it makes me more curious. And it also makes me curious what other topics I will find fascinating once I find out about them and other cultures' take on them that I haven't even thought to cross yet. So, yay for curiosity and sparking it and motivating and fueling it. Woo! But yeah, so I really enjoyed talking with Rosette. The 2-hour bus ride just flew by, and afterwards, that's when it dawned on me that this would be a perfect discussion and experience to talk about in this vlog, because we talked about different cultural things, and it was really natural, and it just sort of happened, and it was really sweet, and I'm glad it did. I learned a lot about the culture of Uganda and what it's like to be a graduate student. While we have a lot of differences, and that's evident, as I talked about earlier, all the different ways we're different, there were some there was overlap between who we are. We're both Michigan State students, and we're both Christians. So as we were sharing stories, it was cool to see our faith intertwine and have that be a reference point. When either of us got confused about the other culture, we could reference back to this common thing that we had in common, and it helped put things into context, and that was really sweet. So yeah, I learned a lot about myself and my culture and how things that I thought were normal aren't normal everywhere, like wedding ceremonies or even just motivation while you're going to school. And I learned a lot about Rosette and about Uganda. I had like 0 context of before, other than the fact that it was in sub-Saharan Africa. So it was really sweet to hear from someone from Uganda about Uganda. And I really enjoyed the experience, and I made my flight, and I made it to Nebraska, and I made it back to my dorm, and we're full circle. Yeah. Cool.